Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the best professional wrestling podcast from pillar to post, broadcasting live and in living color from coast to coast. I am your host, Ray Petree, joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson to my Tully Blanchard, JDO. How's it going today, brother?
Going good, man. Going good. Ready for another fun show?
We are recording in broad daylight today, unlike last week's episode that was recorded in the middle of the night, the devil hours after the Royal Rumble. We're a week removed from the Rumble, deep into WrestleMania season, gearing up for the Elimination Chamber. We had a pretty good episode of Dynamite this week we want to get into, building towards Grand Slam Australia, maybe building towards Revolution. A little bit of both, because we have two pretty big shows coming up within the next month for AEW. Um, Otherwise, in a way, not a very eventful week in wrestling, but maybe that's a good thing. It's a good thing to just have shows to talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of stuff going on with WWE, Saturday Night's Main Event, the Royal Rumble, and AEW building to their big Grand Slam show in Australia. So there's been a lot going on. So yeah, it's good to have a little quiet week in between. That way you can kind of figure out what else is going on.
And we've had a week to digest, to kind of ponder these Royal Rumble results and the gravity of those decisions. So we'll get into that a little later. But let's start with Dynamite this week. Um, I think it was a good show Wednesday. I think it was better than it has been in the past few weeks. Not great, not a huge needle mover, but good enough. And continued both the build, like I said, towards Grand Slam Australia, which is next Saturday, and then also Revolution, which is only weeks away, really, right at the beginning of March. So the show opened with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. Oh, actually, I guess I take that back. The show opened with Jay White and Rated FTR teeing off with the Death Riders. And the outcome of that was that we're getting a tag match at Grand Slam Australia between Jay White and the Rated R superstar Adam Copeland versus John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. It's a Brisbane brawl, ostensibly, no rules, anything goes. Um, Jay White, not Australian, but from New Zealand, so that side of the world. I guess he's closer to his hometown than he would be otherwise. What do you think about that match? Um, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on the Death Riders, but what do you think about that match in a vacuum?
I mean, I kind of wish that Jay White was involved in something else because I've just, as bad as this whole Death Riders thing has been, and the whole rated FTR thing is just kind of thrown together. Uh, I would rather them have Jay White in something a little more prominent. But for him to be on a show that they're calling it a big show, whether it actually is debatable. But it's good for him. But I would rather him be doing something else, something a little more productive.
Jay White, um, is really, really good talent. I mean, just an incredible talent. I always think back to, do you remember when he was feuding with CM Punk on Collision? CM Punk shared a Instagram story from a clip from The Looper, which is a movie where um, Bruce Willis goes back in time and his younger self is tasked with killing himself, killing his older self.
Mm.
Um, because that's how much CM Punk saw of himself and just how much talent he saw in Jay White. He can talk, he can work, he's really flexible, he's a great heel. He's so far been a really good babyface, and unfortunately, he's in the mix with this, even though clearly the direction is Adam Copeland. Um, I guess, part and parcel. How do you feel about Adam Copeland versus John Moxley at Revolution for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship?
Um, I mean, as far as star power, it makes sense. I don't think that Moxley's gonna lose the title to Adam Copeland. Um, and in a way, I guess it makes sense if the end result is that he takes out Adam Copeland because even though this Death Rush story has really just gone off the rails as far as why they're doing it and all that. Um, you know, it's good for having a match against a big name. Um, but it was kind of, it's kind of been a theme lately with these older wrestlers getting these big spotlights. I think it's become starting to become a bit of a problem. So as long as this doesn't turn into some long feud where it's just a one and done, Moxley beats him and that's it, and he moves on to somebody else. It won't be bad, but hopefully this doesn't turn into something long term.
Um, it's an anything goes match. I'm sure there will be foreign objects. What are the chances someone uses a boomerang in this match?
Well, knowing how AEW is and how Tony Khan books this stuff, I'm it's almost a guarantee that they're going to use something to that effect. Um, I'm just, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be something goofy that goes on in this match.
Don't know much about Australia. I don't know what kind of if they have different foreign objects than we use in America, but I'm hoping I see a boomerang. I'm hoping someone knows how to use it correctly, and I think that could be fun. Otherwise, do I want to see Adam Copeland and Jay White beat the shit out of Claudio Castagnoli and John Moxley? Sure. Is it probably going to be the other way around? Hopefully not. But yeah, it's a match on the card, and like I said, Jay White obviously closer to home than he would be otherwise, unless maybe they're in Japan. Although I'm sure New Zealand's closer to. Anyways, not important. It's an interesting match. It's something to throw in the card, a lot of star power in that tag team match. But moving on to Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega. Will Ospreay had a match with a mystery opponent of the Don Callis family. Don Callis is choosing. It turned out to be Mark Davis, former ally of Will Ospreay in the United Empire, former tag team partner of Kyle Fletcher. Mark Davis sort of wrestling under duress. His contract is currently possessed by Don Callis, which I don't want to really get into the logistics of why that's silly. But anyways, yeah, he works for Don Callis now. He has to wrestle against his will. Why doesn't Tony Khan pull this card on Ricky Starks or Ray Phoenix? Yeah, I have your contract. You have to show up and work, even if you don't want to. You know what I mean? Um, what a gimmick for Mark Davis to almost vicariously live through these guys that don't want to show up for work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but I do think it was really they really botched how they did it. Like having him come out and if you think about it, like us at home watching on TV understand what's going on, but the people in the audience just think he's turning heel.
Mhm.
So they have no idea why he's aligning himself with the Don Callis family. So I think they really botched how they brought that up, and they didn't really say anything till afterwards. So everybody kind of knew that though he's not actually doing this because he wants to, he's doing it because he has to. Um, but yeah, it would be an interesting thing for them to do that with either Ray Phoenix or Ricky Starks. But unfortunately, in real life, that would not go over well. Um, so, and also too, I don't think either of those guys even want to compete for AEW anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Phoenix definitely not. Ricky Starks, I would assume he doesn't. Um, so yeah, I think it's just that they wouldn't even play ball with that anyway. But it would be interesting if everybody was willing to do it. But unfortunately, that's not how this is going to work out.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, obviously, the implication is not that Mark Davis doesn't want to work. It was, just that in the storyline he doesn't want to for Don Callis. Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. Obviously to your point, if you've never been to a wrestling show live, it's not like the commentaries played over the intercom. Like you don't hear what they're saying. So you're right. If you're in this, you would know that he wasn't turning heel. You just would think that he's betrayed Will Ospreay.
yeah. I mean, they were literally chanting "You sold out" to him
Yeah.
when he came down the rink. So it's the whole place is thinking, oh, he's turning heel and aligning himself with um with Don Callis' family, which honestly would probably be better for him to do that because otherwise, I mean, he's not going to do anything as a singles wrestler.
Yeah.
So it would probably be better for him to actually do that. But you know, regardless, yeah, it was just. It was really botched. And then I don't know, just it seems like lately there's been a lot of gaffes
Mm.
with AEW as far as things that they've been doing, like the entrance music. They keep playing it at awkward times, and it happens every week. And then they had during this particular segment when Kenny Omega eventually comes out, they have this huge pyro blast that he wasn't even expecting. He was genuinely surprised that that they had this giant pyro show for him doing his signature send off. Which so it's again, it's just like it just seems like nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, that and you know it's interesting. Earlier on there were production issues, and we all thought, well, it'll work itself out. And honestly, now I feel like it's worse than it was before. And I don't know if that has something to do with the executive producer or changes that WBD has made. I don't know, but it definitely every week it seems more and more apparent that there's some kind of um, confusion going on in the truck in the back. The match itself, Ospreay Mark Davis was fantastic. Both those guys worked well. Mark Davis looked great. That power bomb, not power bomb, that pile driver he gave Ospreay was fantastic. I mean, looked great. Obviously, Mark Davis is Australian. I'd assume he's going to be at that show, whether his match is aired or it's a dark match. I don't know, but I'd assume he'll be there in some way, shape, or form. Maybe he'll intervene in this match. I don't know, but um, Kenny Omega wearing like a Street Fighter shirt and blue jeans coming out. How do you feel about? And listen, this is totally nitpicking. I mean, this is not really in any way, shape, or form a critical analysis, I guess. But you know, this is the best wrestler in the world. This is an EVP. Um, is there a dissonance between how Kenny Omega like presents himself and the reality? To me, it seems like there is when you're going out. He's wearing a Street Fighter 5 shirt and blue jeans. I don't know. It seems odd to me.
I mean, I think it's probably him trying to go with the old I'm a baby face, so I'm trying to relate to the crowd because most people don't go out dressed up in a suit, for things. Most people kind of equate that with being a heel as like, oh, I'm better than you, I dress better than you, I'm making all this money or whatever. Whereas you go out there in like a regular outfit, jeans, a t-shirt, whatever, it kind of you're more being in common with the regular person. So maybe that's kind of what he's thinking. Um, but yeah, I you would think if he was trying to portray, although I would guess he's never really leaned into the EVP thing a whole lot. I mean, he's talked about it, him being an EVP, but I mean, he hasn't mentioned it a lot recently. So maybe he's just not really trying to give off that impression.
I mean, they did when he returned. Christopher Daniels sort of ceded control to him in a way. I mean, obviously, he's still an authority figure, as he was before. He was the head of talent relations, both in kayfabe and in real life. But I don't know. I mean, since returning at World's End, he is not. So I don't know. I mean, um,
Yeah, I mean,
anyways,
I think he mentioned it in when he was in the ring, uh, cutting his promo after he saved Osprey. He mentioned that he was an EVP.
yeah.
Um, but otherwise, it didn't really go anywhere.
Um, do you? I don't know. On one hand, I think this is obviously a dream team. Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. This is, equate this to the Mega Powers or something like that. I mean, these are two of arguably the best wrestlers in AEW teaming up. Does it feel like that?
Um, I suppose in a way, although the way that they've teamed them up was really, really poorly done.
Hmm.
I mean, it's you would think as many battles as they've had, uh, including I believe the last time they wrestled that was at was it Forbidden Door,
Yeah.
I think, and they've had some battles, and I mean, to the fact that they went from uh, Kenny being like, well, I'm not going to join you because I don't like you, to then 5 minutes later being like, all right, yeah, we're good, we'll team up. That's
Yeah.
everything's fine. It's you The smarter thing to do would have been kind of spread that out a little bit. Tease the fans a little bit. Like, are they actually gonna team up? Are they not? Is there too much bad blood between them? Things like that. As opposed to now, they're just like best friends.
Yeah.
Like they're everything's cool. There's no tension at all. It doesn't seem like um, yeah. It just I haven't liked at all how they've done it. And as far as them wrestling together, it is interesting, but I think the way it's been rushed through has really kind of dampened the excitement for it.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I mean, Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher later in the show had a match against the Hounds of Hell, Brody King, Buddy Matthews, distancing themselves from Malachi Black on Collision. They've unveiled the rebrand. Um, while I don't agree with the idea that Takeshi and Fletcher had to beat the Hounds of Hell because I think they're a very legitimate tag team and someone you build around going forward in this division. I don't know if that was a good idea, but it got the point across. Fletcher and Takeshita, a very dangerous duo. And they need to look good because this is an all-star dream team, tag team they're facing. Um, but at the same time, I don't feel like AW's presented it like that. Like, I don't know. It doesn't have, and I don't know exactly how you fix that. I'm not, but I just know that I don't feel that, and that's probably not a good thing. But moving on, Mariah May on commentary for a match between Timeless Tony Storm and Queen Aminata. Now, Tony Storm, instead of coming out in her usual, wrestling garb and the red lipstick and to the black and white, she comes out as Mariah May, wearing her ring gear, has a blonde weave, um, copied her mannerisms, the idiosyncrasies, pretended to be her, insulted her. This was like something out of an Attitude Era episode of Raw, like a really good Attitude Era Raw segment. This was some of the best television I've seen from AEW, in terms of the match was good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but the impersonation of Mariah May magnified it. I mean, this was great television. What do you think about this?
Oh, I thought it was great. I
Yeah.
thought, I've always thought that this feud between Mariah May and Tony Storm has always been interesting because they're both really good wrestlers. They both can talk. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's surprising that they haven't kind of gone to this a little sooner because she is, portraying that she's this amazing actress. Then why would she not impersonate people to, insult them?
Mhm.
And this was, I mean, it was great. I thought it was very, very entertaining. From her impression of Mariah May, which was pretty good, and also the fact that they look a lot alike anyway.
Mhm.
Uh, and then Mariah May's reaction to all of it was awesome. Her being on commentary and everything. See, I thought this whole thing was great.
Tony Storm, once again, not born in, but grew up in and is billed from the Gold Coast of Australia, which is in Queensland, the same state, I guess, or province that Brisbane is located in. And so this is, this is really going to be a hometown show for her. It's as close as she's ever going to get to being home. I hope that this is the main event of this show, Tony Storm versus Mariah May. But this segment was gold. I mean, Mariah May on commentary was, oh, her perverted butler stole my outfit and she had to have it modified, and she was like, look at her weaves falling out. And this was really good television. Queen Aminata, obviously, she got her ass kicked. Put up a good fight, I guess, but Tony Storm, bona fide superstar. Yeah, this is good. This is really good stuff. I'm excited for this match. I don't know if I want Mariah May to lose that title yet. I'd like to see her have life as a champion beyond Tony Storm. We've talked at ad nauseum about this. We don't think they've used her well as a champion. She's not been put in the light. She's not been featured in the way that she should have been, given her talent in the ring and on the microphone. I feel like she's been on commentary more than she's been in the ring, which that's not great. I know she's a great talker, but she's a good wrestler too. Um, but I have a feeling Tony Storm's gonna, if any, I mean, we'll run down the card later, but if anyone from Australia is gonna win their match, I think it's gonna be Tony Storm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll obviously get into it more later on when we talk about Grand Slam
Mhm.
more in detail. But yeah, it's definitely disappointing how they've used Mariah May because while obviously her and Tony Storm are great working together, there's a lot of other women in the company you could have her go against.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, but this segment was gold, pure gold,
Yeah.
and I wish they would do more of this.
Yeah. Um, the last thing we're going to talk about is this MJF segment, and really more about just the state of AEW and this whole feud, multiple feuds he's kind of been interwoven in now. So for weeks now, he's been feuding with Jeff Jarrett, and last week that came to sort of an abrupt end, right? Jeff Jarrett challenges Claudio Castagnoli. If he wins, he gets a shot at Jon Moxley, but Jeff Jarrett loses, obviously, as he should. I mean, he's 57 years old. Claudio Castagnoli is a stud, if there ever were one. Um, and MJF comes out afterwards and lays him out and says, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to say I told you so, but, walks away. Jeff Jarrett, wants to win the title. His dreams were crushed. This week, MJF comes out. And I guess earlier in the show, I should say, Hangman Page getting interviewed backstage. Max Caster interrupts him. Max Caster says, "Well, you want to hurt people so bad. Why don't you hurt Anthony Bowens or Billy Gunn?" And Hangman Page says, "Well, I haven't seen them tonight, but I see you." And so he's chasing them around the arena, I guess, in the background of this episode. And during MJF's promo, where he's insulting Jeff Jarrett, Caster runs in the ring. And MJF's like, what is with it? Why are people interrupting me? Then Hangman gets in the ring. And Hangman and him go face to face again, teasing a feud down the road between MJF and Hangman. This is the third week in the row that these guys have interacted briefly. MJF continues his promo, and then he gets interrupted again by Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes, 55 years old, been in the wrestling game for 37 years, right? And this guy looks haggard. I mean, 55, he looks 65, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess for how old he is, he doesn't look too bad, but
In that, well, his body looks fine. His face, I mean, he looks rough.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess he's in good shape for his age.
yeah. But
Uh,
yeah, the point remains.
Dustin Rhodes comes out and I mean, shy of the FCC guidelines, just slanders MJF, calls him a son of a bitch,
Yeah.
everything. I mean, he just curses his name, as profane as he can be. MJF very calmly says, it must be hard living in the shadow of your dad. It must be hard living in the shadow of your little brother. And then Dustin Rhodes starts teeing off on him. Security comes, breaks the fight up. MJF gets out of the ring, runs back in, hits a low blow, a la, Ric Flair, maybe a very nice looking low blow. Um, this segment kind of ends next week. It's going to be MJF and Dustin Rhodes in Austin, Texas, wrestling. We don't get to see MJF in the ring very often on Dynamite. It's, I'll be honest, it's a little unfortunate. It's going to be against a 55-year-old. Um, Before I interject, what do you think about this MJF? He says, this isn't all elderly wrestling. This is all elite wrestling. And he's, we Adam Copeland, what we talked about earlier, challenging Jon Moxley. Adam Copeland's 50 years old. The guy with the briefcase who gets another guaranteed shot is Christian Cage, also 50 years old. The Ring of Honor champion, Chris Jericho is, I think, 53 or 54. Um, And then, you have Jeff Jarrett wants a title shot. Dustin Rhodes wrestling on Dynamite against the hottest young wrestler in the world right now. Um, is MJF trying to turn something that's clearly not working into something that is, or do you think this is intentional?
As far as the whole old guys thing,
Yeah, do you think he's reading the subtext and he's like, okay, well, I'll kind of play a legend killer gimmick? Or do you think that Tony Khan is doing this on purpose?
I mean, honestly, the whole thing has been really confusing, and I don't know if that's what they're trying to go for. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, fucking Dustin Rose, he hasn't done anything on um on Dynamite in I can't even remember how long. He's been on Ring of Honor
Yeah.
in tag team and stuff like that. So that might be an indication that he is kind of doing this on purpose. But I don't think it's a good idea
Mhm.
because, for one, you have all of these old guys who are, continually, just interacting with MJF, and it's like that's not helping MJF at all. I mean, MJF's having to go up against Jeff Jarrett and now Dustin Rhodes, and yeah, I just think it's leaning into this problem that people have pointed out, where it's like all you're doing is pushing these old guys,
Mhm.
and again, it's like I can understand if with Adam Copeland, okay, he's one of the biggest superstars of our childhood,
Yeah.
Edge, and he's going against just like Jeff Jarrett, who's he hasn't done anything significant in how many years? I mean, it's just this whole issue. I don't know if they're doing it intentionally. I don't know if he's trying to make it a legend killer type of gimmick, like you said,
Mhm.
but it's not working. It's not. I mean, MJF is interesting because he's entertaining and he's good at what he does,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's helping him get out of this funk that he's in, where it's been something people have really noticed that he's not as big as he once was. He's kind of lost in the shuffle. Maybe the whole Adam Page thing will eventually turn out, and that will really help. But right now, I don't. I hope it's intentional because if it's not, this is just really, really Tony Khan not being aware of what's going on.
Yeah. Um, well, two things, I guess. One, I wonder how much of this is that he is preoccupied with acting and they don't want to put him in anything important. Although, I mean, a feud with Hangman Adam Page would be pretty, I mean, that's a dream feud. Those are dream matches you'd want to see. I think, I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say this. They're the two best wrestlers in AEW, top to bottom, in terms of, all being a five-tool player. I think they're the most well-rounded wrestlers in AEW. So seeing those guys have a feud would be, I mean, on paper, that looks like a dream feud. Obviously, immediately, he's been feuding with these older guys. I'm reminded of Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 25, feuding with Snuka and Ricky Steamboat and Roddy Piper. I'd like to bear mention of something. I want you to take a guess here. How old do you think Roddy Piper was in 2009 when he feuded with Chris Jericho?
Oh boy. Uh, I don't know. Was he in his like 60s?
Take a guess.
I don't know, 65.
He was 54.
Was he really?
Take a
Damn.
guess how old Ricky Steamboat was.
Oh God. Well, Ricky looked fucking great.
Ricky looked good. Yeah,
So
Ricky good.
well, I guess was he? I guess was he in his 50s also? Somewhere in his 50s?
Take a guess.
I don't know. 56.
Spot on, 56.
Okay.
So Roddy Piper 50. Jimmy Snuka was in his 60s. I'm not going to mention Snuka, but
Yeah.
he was 62 or 63, but
Yeah.
Roddy
Yeah.
Piper 54, Ricky Steamboat 56. Jeff Jarrett's 57 and Dustin's 55. So they're older than Steamboat and Piper were at WrestleMania 25.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, in reality, was it the best use of Chris Jericho at that time? No, probably not. But people laud Chris Jericho for that feud and his work in it. I just don't. I feel like they moved away from Jeff Jarrett too, like abruptly, like it jarringly. It was, 1 minute they're having promos, they're having 10-minute long promos on Dynamite where they're insulting each other's significant others. And he's calling MJF a one-hit wonder. And the next week, he's got his ass beat by Claudio Castagnoli and he's gone.
Yeah.
And now MJF's feuding with Dustin. Do you think they're circling back to Jeff Jarrett? Do you think there's a world where it's going to be like all the 50-year-olds versus MJF at Revolution in a gauntlet? Or what do you, I mean, how do you turn this into something that works?
Well, I mean, ideally, if you were going to do something like that, you would have MJF just go out there and, you know, just tear these guys apart, on the mic and then in the ring and be like, look, I'm tired of these old guys trying to take my spotlight. So
Hmm.
I'm taking them out like a legend killer gimmick.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you have the Death Riders who originally when they first kind of created this group, it sounds like that was what the intention was for them
Yeah.
was that AEW's got a problem, even though they never explicitly said that was the issue. They kind of made it seem like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and now they're just kind of off to the side, just doing whatever, and there's no real direction. So I don't know if maybe this is Tony Khan trying to salvage that idea
Mhm.
with MJF because he's better at pulling it off because Moxley's not that great at talking. Uh, or if it's a situation where they were trying the whole thing with Jeff Jarrett and people immediately started to point out that, oh, it's just another old guy
Mhm.
that they're trying to push and that no one really cared that much about it. So he's like, well, I'll just kill off this Jeff Jarrett thing and then I'll just have him go through and pivot and start beating up some other old guys to then eventually lead to, maybe it leads to MJF, I don't know, attacking Christopher Daniels, being like, you're also one of these old guys who I'm tired of dealing with, I'm tired of seeing, and then that leads to Hangman coming in and getting involved, and then
Mhm.
leads to that feud, something like that. Uh, but yeah, like it's been all over the place with how they've done this. Like the old guys thing is a problem. People have pointed out that it's a problem. Uh, and yeah, I don't really know what they're doing with it. I don't really have a sense of what direction they're going to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're in a very weird spot where it's like I think we all had an idea of what John Moxley's what the subtext was behind what he was saying. Um, which is, I think far too often wrestling fans, because listen, these are not the smartest people in the world. We're wrestling fans. Some of them fine, but others, well, I don't know, and sometimes subtext is okay. I think a lot of people want things in wrestling to be spelled out in plain terms because, quite frankly, they're not that bright. But it's okay to say things and kind of leave it in the air. But then your actions have to back up what people speculate, right? And they haven't done that. They have not. There's not been a clear, and I don't, and I'm not going to blame that necessarily on Moxley because Tony Khan runs a show, but I think both of them are to blame for this. And I would not mind to see MJF kind of clean up the scraps and be this legend killer. And I also get like, yeah, they can't. I don't know. They're poisoning Orange Cassidy on Collision. I can't believe that they were allowed to do that, let alone, it's not like they're going to pull the plastic bag out on Dynamite. You know what I mean? On TBS and kill a guy. I know they can't do that every week on the TV show, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing MJF versus a gauntlet of 50-year-olds at Revolution. I think that'd be really fun. Just him, be just like, oh, I got Jeff Jarrett. Now I'm getting Dustin. Maybe the next guy's Billy Gunn. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But anyways, I don't know what other 50-year-olds. Luther's in his 50s. Maybe he chokes out Luther. I don't know. But not that he's a legend. But anyways,
yeah,
Grand
yeah. I mean,
Slam. Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. No.
No, I would just say the way that thing has been going, it would make more sense if this was the Death Riders doing this,
Yeah.
because you could say, well, we took out Daniels, I mean, he's not 50, but he's old. He's older. He's been around a long time. We got rid of him. We took the title. We're gonna, beat up Adam Copeland. There's an older guy. They could go out and they could beat up Dustin, old guy. They could, Christian could try to cash in. They could beat him up. Like it could do something like that. Where like we're taking all these older guys out and at least have somewhat of direction. Whereas now they have these two different things going on that might, kind of contradict each other. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to be, but in any case, Grand Slam.
Yeah. Yeah. Grand Slam Australia. a lot of controversy going on. I mean, this is kind of a hotbed issue right now, and I think you know, this has been something that the grifters have attached themselves to, the JD from New Yorks of the world, the the Bully Rays of the world. This show is very interesting, and I think a microcosm of a lot of the issues AEW's had over the last 2 years or so. I guess going back about 8 months now, this show was announced for the Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, a 52,000 seat stadium. With on the headlines of the posters, it was Tony Storm, right? She was supposed to be the star that was going to help pack this stadium, right? And after a few months, they quickly realized we're not going to fill the stadium, and it's going to look bad. You know what I mean? So they moved it to the Brisbane Entertainment Center. Now, Grand Slam, for those who don't know, has historically emanated from the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York City. The first event had over 21,000 fans in it in attendance. And it's always been a special episode of Dynamite. And then they tape delay Rampage there. That's how it's been historically. It's always been a TV special. But when you tell people we're going to pack a 52,000 seat stadium, I think naturally people's minds went to, well, this is a new pay-per-view now. We don't have a pay-per-view in June. I mean, in January. We have World's End in December. We don't have one in January, so we're going to have one in February. I think that's where everyone's mind went to, right? Because I mean, in the past, that gap between Full Gear and Revolution has really been hard for AEW because that's going on 3.5, 4 months without a pay-per-view. And they have World's End now, but that's 3 months or 2 months without a pay-per-view. So it made sense on paper. Well, now we have a February show. It's going to be in a stadium. And it got moved to the Brisbane Entertainment Center, a 13,000 seat arena. Still, there wasn't a decision made about is this on TV or is it a pay-per-view? I think because of that, we all assumed pay-per-view, right? Saturday, there are Saturday pay-per-views. It's not unfounded that they don't have Collision during the week for a pay-per-view. Um, and then, I guess it's been about a month ago now, maybe a month and a half, that this was announced as a TV special. It was going to air on TNT, and then it was going to air on simulcast for Max, right? Well, we talked about it on the show when it happened, but they say, oh, it's going to be on TNT at 8 o'clock. Well, the problem is that night is the All-Star weekend, and it's, I guess, the Rising Stars game, right?
Yeah.
And the skills challenge, and probably there's going to be a 3-point contest or something, the 3-point shootout, something like that. This is a skills night of the NBA All-Star weekend, so it's not going to air at 8 o'clock on TNT because there's no way they're going to pass up the NBA for Grand Slam Australia, right? And then this week, Tony Khan, in a report, in an interview, said that having this be a TV event has always been the plan. That's something that the network wanted. It's something the network brought to us recently as an opportunity to follow NBA All-Star Saturday. We'll define recently, right? Define because this is a pay-per-view that or an event that's been planned for at least 6 months now. I don't remember exactly when it was announced, but I'm saying at least 6 months. In the summertime, this was announced. How recently are we talking? And you have fans who, I mean, I don't know how much people paid for these tickets. I tried looking and I really didn't. I mean, I saw what people said they paid between lodging and plane flights and things like that, but that's not indicative of the ticket cost. AEW tickets are expensive. I think that's probably a lot of the reason why they struggle to fill arenas or they have historically. I don't know what the pay-per-view cost of a ticket is. I've never been to a pay-per-view, never tried to go to a pay-per-view, so I can't really speak to it. I've only been to tapings of Dynamite, and Jordan and I went to a House Rules show one time. People are upset. They thought they paid for pay-per-view. They paid pay-per-view prices for a pay-per-view, right? And they
Mhm.
now are realizing they paid for a glorified episode of Collision. Um, so clearly a subset of your audience is upset, right? And Tony Khan not taking any accountability for the how up in the air all this has been, how like there's just never been a definitive answer. Now they're saying that this was always planned to be TV. It wasn't billed as being TV. Isn't this something that you would have marketed as a Max simulcast months in advance to bring excitement to that Max simulcasting? Um, What do you make of all this, Jordan?
I think it is a case of classic AEW dysfunction. And, obviously, everybody kind of gets upset when people talk about AEW in a bad light because they feel like they're just piling on AEW. But, I mean, stuff like this just keeps happening. I mean, if you're a good company, you would promote this show properly as what it's going to be. And if there is any doubt, you come out and clear that up so that the fan base is not left confused as to what this is going to be. And yeah, I mean, you false advertised. You didn't, people thought this was going to be a pay-per-view and now they're being told it's not. And I don't know if it was their intention for this to be a pay-per-view and the the bad ticket sales and them having to move it led them to be like, well, we'll just make it a TV special because it's not going to be anything major. Maybe that was what happened, but if that is what happens, then you kind of have to tell people that that's what's going on, and then people who've already bought tickets for what they thought was pay per view, you make that right with them
Mhm.
financially. It's just there's so many other better ways you could have handled this. Whereas now there's been nothing but controversy around the show, a lot of negativity,
Mhm.
and which is not fair to the wrestlers. It's not fair to the fans, and yeah, it's like you have this big show for Tony Storm where presumably she's probably going to win the title, and now it's going to be on this show that I don't even know how many people are even going to watch it. If are they going to watch the show? Are they even going to know like where to watch it, what time it is, like what's going on with it? Um, yeah, it's just the whole thing has been so badly promoted, so badly put together, and it's been one of the big issues as to why AEW has struggled with viewership and ratings and things like that. It's just this type of stuff keeps happening.
Um, if she wins, she will become not only a four-time women's world champion, but she will be the first champion in AEW history to win a title four times, which is, I think, very momentous. And it's going to be if she wins, it's going to be a big moment for the fans. Um, looking down this card, Okada versus Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews, Australian, for the Continental Championship. Kenny and Megan Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita. Kyle Fletcher, obviously Australian. Jay White, Adam Copeland, Moxley versus Moxley and Castagnoli. Jay White, you know, New Zealander, close enough, I guess, in their mind. And then, they're building towards a Mercedes Moné versus Harley Cameron match, Harley Cameron being Australian. Um, very hometown hero-esque. If I were Australian, I feel like I'd rather just see really great matches than, I mean, Buddy Matthews versus Okada, yeah, has the potential to be good, but would I rather see Okada versus a higher profile wrestler? Maybe, right? Because you already have the hometown flair of Tony Storm being there, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think to me it seems like Tony Khan saw what WWE did with Rhea Ripley
Mhm.
in having her basically building a show around her.
Yeah.
The fact that she's their biggest women's star. She's obviously from Australia, and they have this big show in this big stadium. Um, it kind of seems like that was what Tony Khan was wanting to do with Tony Storm
Yeah.
because she's, arguably their biggest female wrestler. She's from Australia. Well, hey, we'll just kind of do the same type of thing. But unfortunately, obviously, as we know, WWE and AEW are, two different worlds right now.
Yeah.
As far as production, as far as the attendance and things like that. Because WWE didn't even sell out the stadium that they were in, even though
Yeah.
I mean it was pretty close. But there was one side that was black that was tarped off. Um, so yeah, you would think if you're going to do something like this, you would make sure that all your ducks are in a row. You have everything straight, so you don't have this type of chaos going on as to the production of it. But yeah, unfortunately, this has just been bungled from the start.
Um, to play devil's advocate, and certainly on the other hand, should we be complaining as fans, obviously not the fans who bought the tickets, but as fans, that this is an episode of Collision, essentially? This is a pretty good episode of Collision. It looks like if this were an episode of Collision, I mean, this is a lot of all-star matches. You're liable to see a title change at this show. I mean, I think this is going to be fun. I mean, I don't know how late at night is it going to start? I mean, All-Star weekend starts at 8. What are we looking at? 11 or 12 o'clock this show is going to begin. It's going to have a hell of a lead in. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that is an opportunity there for them to seize. Now, are people going to want to watch wrestling that late at night? I don't know. Um, but I ask you this though, because I think this is an interesting spot. This is sort of a lot like Saturday Night's Main Event was in the 80s. Like you're leading in that coveted what was the SNL spot when they weren't airing SNL. You have a huge lead in from that NBA All-Star weekend. Do you begin this show with Ryan May and Tony Storm?
Um, no, I think they'll probably have that as be the main event
Hmm.
of the show. Um, I mean, as far as the timing, it would probably make more sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
But also, too, that's, I mean, depending on who you are, I guess that's probably the biggest match on the show.
Oh, I think it
So,
is. I think it easily is the most
yeah,
important match of the show. Yeah.
yeah. So if you're doing that, then do you run the risk of we have this match first, it goes through everything, and then after that match is over, everybody just turns it off. And then, you just, except for trying to get people to wait for this match in the main event, and then watching everything else. That's my problem with this is like it's starting so late in the evening. You know, I mean, yeah, you have the lead in from the All Star uh, Saturday night, but how many basketball fans are also wrestling fans? You don't really know how big of that audience it is. You might have a large portion there, just like, oh well, the All Star weekend's over, I'm just gonna turn it off, and go to bed or whatever because it's 11 o'clock. That's I think what's been one of the biggest issues with this is just it's starting so late, and there's one match on it that you really want to see as far as Mariah May and Tony Storm because it's the only one that really has any type of build up to it. I mean, the Okada and Buddy Matthews kind of got thrown together last minute. The Osprey, Omega, Takeshita, and uh, blanking on his name right now.
Oh, God, Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher, thank you. That match was thrown together what a couple weeks ago,
Well, I mean, they
maybe
began
two
building
three
it, I guess,
weeks.
when Kenny Omega returned. So a month, I
Yeah,
mean, a month, it'll be a month and a half of a build. Well, I mean, and
yeah, maybe.
obviously, Will Ospreay's been feuding with them for
Yeah,
months. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a continuation of that story, but the match, I
yeah,
guess, was announced 2 or 3 weeks ago.
yeah. But I mean, basically, the majority of this show, the matches were thrown together pretty last minute, as opposed to the Mariah May Tony Storm thing, which has obviously had a lot of build to it. Um, so yeah, it's I don't know how well it's going to do coming off the All Star break because, like I said, you might just have people turn it off because it's late and they don't really care to want to watch it. They'll just read about what happened the next day or something like that. Um, which is why I say like they really kind of booked this into a corner, so to speak, where I don't know how successful it's going to be based on everything that's gone around it.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I were Tony Khan, I really think I would start the show with. I mean, I guess Kenny Megan, Will Ospreay versus Takeshita and Fletcher's not a bad option either to start the show because you want to find a way to hook the audience that's leading in. I mean, like you said, obviously the crossover appeal is not very high. I mean, obviously not 600,000 odd people watch Dynamite every week. But yeah, I mean, you give them something that's really going to hook, they can sink their teeth into, and it's not going to make them turn the channel because obviously we see it every week in the ratings. It doesn't matter what the main event is, people are going to turn the show off. So anyways, going across the aisle, WWE. This was a great episode of Raw this week. I think, you know, exiting Royal Rumble, which is a big four pay-per-view. We talked about it last week. My favorite pay-per-view of the year, just in terms of the spectacle of the Rumble itself. Start the show, Jey Uso, Cleveland, Ohio. What an entrance, right? What a standing ovation. Then he got another standing ovation. I mean, he's choked up in this promo. Um, I want to ask you this. Can you name five people since we've been watching, not before us, but since we've been watching the WWE that have had this much of an electricity around them in any city? Like he has no connection to Cleveland, Ohio. It's not like Sami Zayn in Toronto. You know what I mean? No
Yeah.
connection to this city. The Rumble wasn't in Cleveland, but he shows up electrifying. I mean, just can you name five guys who've had this big of a reaction with the crowd?
Um, I mean, the only guys that I can really think of as far as since I've been watching it, I mean, Brian Danielson during the Yes Movement when he was Daniel Bryan, OH Jeff Hardy, who we constantly refer to when we're talking about somebody, and also has been somebody that they people have related to Jey Uso in this particular circumstance because of how just over he is. Um, the only other guys I can really think of would be like maybe early John Cena, right when he started to get big. Um, and then, like Stone Cold, The Rock, guys like that.
But
I mean,
they
it's,
weren't doing it every week though when we were watching. I mean, they were coming back.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, you have to kind of go back a little ways
Yes.
before, like, we were watching live regularly to really find guys who get this reaction. I mean, for me, I know the conversation was for quite a few years that you really didn't have guys get this Attitude Era type of reaction. You didn't
Yes.
get that Stone Cold pop, the Rock pop. Whoever else from that era, the big stars, would constantly get those big reactions, and it was something that especially with WWE audiences, a lot of them just sit quiet.
Yeah.
They don't really make a lot of noise. But when Jey Uso comes out, he's got that connection. He's over. You have everybody there standing on their feet, doing their whole yeet thing. It's, I mean, it's the reason why he won the Rumble, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's nobody in the company right now who is hotter than Jey Uso.
No.
I don't think you can, even the big name guys, Cody, John Cena, Roman, Punk. I mean, they're obviously you get reactions because they're big stars, but I mean, they don't have as much momentum behind them as Jey Uso does.
No. Um, the report came out that he was told he was going to win the Rumble hours before the Rumble when he showed up to the building. Um, how
Typical
much of this?
WWE.
Well, I'm sorry.
Typical WWE.
Typical.
Last minute.
Yeah. How much of this do you think was a reaction to that crowd at Saturday night's main event in San Antonio?
I think that was a lot to do with it. I think, um, for me, I mean, maybe the idea went back as far as Backlash. I mean, that video of his entrance in Paris, I mean, that's one of their highest rated um, videos. It's I think what almost 3 million views on that video. That's really when this whole big entrance thing of his started, and it's only built since then.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's one particular instance of this happened this night, and it's like, oh, we're definitely going to do this. I think it's been a continual build of, well, this has to die off at some point.
No,
This
but
has to.
when did they decide? Like, obviously, this has been, you're right. Obviously, this has been something that's been going for a while. But at what point do you think, okay, we can make this guy win the Rumble? Because there had to be a point. There had to be it wasn't just like, I mean, yeah, I'm sure in his mind he had a lot of people he thought could win it. But at what point did you think that Jey Uso's the guy I'm going to have win this?
I mean, I don't. Maybe Saturday night's main event. It's possible. Um, I would. It wouldn't surprise me because I mean, for a long time, that's kind of how WWE made their decisions was last minute. So
Yeah.
maybe he was just like, uh, as far as Jey Uso being a contender to win it in their mind of like, we could definitely have this guy win it. It's tough to say. I mean, uh, maybe after, yeah, like after Saturday night's main event, I guess. But for me, I would have been like, look at the reaction when he won the Intercontinental title, finally, when he finally won that singles title. And it was a conversation even before that, that
Mhm.
it's like, man, we want to see this guy win the title. It was like Jeff Hardy. He was so over. The crowd's like, we want this guy to win a title. We want him to win a world title. And when he finally did it, it was this amazing reaction at Armageddon 2008. And again when he won the World Heavyweight Championship, and it's just he has that connection with the fans. So I think once they kind of really saw the established connection he had with the fans, I think that led them to believe that this is a guy that could have him win the Rumble.
Um, yeah, the yeah, what an entrance on Raw this week. Well, and we'll put a pin on that, and we'll go back to that part of this conversation later. Charlotte Flair's return. This was strange. This was to me. This was I don't. This was a strange promo because at first, TMZ earlier in the day reported that she had finalized her divorce with Andrade, which we know how TMZ works. That this was strategic on their part. Charlotte Flair returns. They put out this story because they knew right now it would be the people are going to look for her name on Google now as opposed to any time before she had returned. This was their time to make this, as big as they could get this story to be. So she has that going around in her head. Obviously, she wins the Rumble and she's booed, right?
Yeah,
So she comes out on Raw and it seemed more like Ashley than it was Charlotte Flair, right? It seemed at first she was trying to lean into how personal, how difficult the last year's been for her. And the fans just they did not give a fuck. They
yeah,
did not give a shit about her life or how hard it's been to return, the trials and the tribulations. All they care about is that someone else didn't win that Rumble, right?
yeah,
And she pivots like immediately. Like you can see the wheels turn because she's so good at this. And she's like, all right, fine. You want the queen? You got the queen.
yeah.
She cuts a heel promo. Um, what'd you think about that promo?
Well, I thought it was well. First off, um, to have her try to come out and be a baby face, I thought was didn't make sense when she initially came out. Um, Obviously because of you look at the reaction online, people went out. I mean, her video of winning the Rumble had more dislikes than likes on YouTube. That whole deal, which Jey Uso's did too. For to be fair, um, but yeah, I think it was a mistake to try to get her to be a baby face, to try to get that to be that sympathetic baby face, because it's just like people are like, no, we don't we didn't want you to win the Rumble. I think people were happy she was back,
Yeah.
but I don't think they wanted her to be thrown right into the main event picture again.
Mhm.
Um, and especially when you think about who she will probably be facing, it's either going to be Tiffany Stratton or Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is the biggest babyface woman in the company, if not the biggest babyface, period. Um, as evidenced by her reaction she got in about 10 minutes after this promo.
Yeah.
Um, and then Tiffany Stratton, who has become more and more of a babyface who gets cheered constantly. It would only make sense for Charlotte to be the heel. She's going to be the heel in both those matches.
Yeah.
She's going to get booed anyway. So why not lean into her being a heel? That's where she's best anyway. She's a better heel than she's a babyface. So, um, but yeah, like you said, she came out. She tried to do the sympathetic babyface, didn't work. And like any great wrestler of any generation, you just immediately pivot. You're like, okay, you're not like The Rock. He
Yeah.
was a babyface. He got booed. He immediately switched it. Okay, I'm gonna be a heel, and she did it, and it fit, and now it fits with what she's gonna do going forward. Um, but the decision to try to have her be the sympathetic babyface was such a boneheaded decision. I don't know why anyone thought that was gonna work.
Yeah, it seemed clunky. It seemed clunky, but and she's not, obviously the best facet of her game is not talking, right? She is through and through an in-ring performer. I always call her the gold standard of women's wrestling. I think she's I think she's probably the best women's wrestler in America right now. Barring health, of course, barring that she can perform at the level she has in the past. Yeah, I don't know, but very professional by her, very pro move. I think she saved that, and then Rhea Ripley coming out really juxtaposed. That contrast was great. That this is what someone who's beloved looks like, and this is what someone who the crowd doesn't want to see on their TV looks like. I don't know if that kind of heat bodes well for Charlotte. I think she needs to turn chicken shit into chicken salad because it's not that people don't like her because she's being a good heel. It's that people
Yeah,
don't like her because she was given an opportunity they don't think she deserves.
yeah.
Um, which we can agree. You didn't like it when she won. I did. We can agree to, that, I mean, we could go back and forth with that for a long time, but at the end of the day, she's going to the main event of WrestleMania, right? And we'll see. I guess tonight on SmackDown, we'll find out if she wants to challenge. Well, maybe we won't find out, but we'll have a better idea of if it's going to be Stratton or Rhea Ripley. Um, some other big things that happened on this episode. Roman Reigns was, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee pretty much said that he's not going to be involved in I mean, he's going to be gone for a while. Ostensibly, that means he's not going to be in the Elimination Chamber due to those injuries he suffered via Seth Rollins' two vicious stomps at the Rumble. Um, how do you feel about Reigns not being in the chamber?
Uh, well, when I was scrolling through X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I saw a report. I don't remember who it was from, so I don't want to give credit to the wrong person, but it was one of the wrestling sites, and they said that he wasn't going to be in the chamber because he wasn't planning on winning it, so they didn't want him to take a pin. Was the reason why. Uh, which when I think about it makes sense because you want to limit the amount of times he gets beat, so it's kind of special when he does lose. But at the same point, you you kind of would want one of your biggest stars in the chamber, the marquee match of the show. Um, so in that vein, it's disappointing, I guess, but and especially because if they're planning on the match at WrestleMania being Punk, Rollins, and Reigns in a triple threat, you could further that storyline in the chamber.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so I don't really get it, but they're protective of Roman and the matches he's in, the if he's going to get beat or not, who he gets beat by. He's kind of in that uh, level of star right now. So
Um, yeah, I think that's kind of dumb, but I mean, you let Solo Sikoa pin him, or yeah, he was pinned, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so you let Solo Sikoa pin him. So I don't know. I mean, like, if you let Solo Sikoa pin him, then fuck it, why not let Seth Rollins or CM Punk pin him? Anyways, yeah, so I mean, obviously things could change. I mean, they could audible, or maybe we're getting worked. The report you saw, I think, is from Dave Meltzer, and it's very well possible. They might
yeah,
have just worked the sheets.
yeah,
He might return, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like he's going to be there or involved in the event. Which means he won't return until, you know, Elimination Chamber is in March this year, early March.
yeah, something like that.
Let's look it up. We have the Google machine.
Yeah.
Um,
Although the one funny thing I will say about the Elimination Chamber match was after the Royal Rumble at the press conference when John Cena was talking about it, he basically was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be in the Elimination Chamber," and obviously they have qualifier matches.
yeah.
But I guess John's basically like, "Look, I'm John Cena. This is my last year, and I'm going to be in the chamber, but I'm not going to qualify for it. I'm John Cena, so I'm just going to be in it because he's obviously off filming a movie, even though he was supposed to be full time, from what I was led to believe. But that's another conversation for a different day. But I just thought that was funny. He was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be in the chamber because I'm John Cena. I'm going to be in the chamber."
No, that's a conversation for today. He calls a shot that I'm going to be in the chamber because I'm the greatest of all time, and I
Yeah,
paid my dues.
yeah,
And I've done everything this company's asked me to do in every scenario, at every place on the card at WrestleMania. I want to be in the chamber and I want to main event WrestleMania because it's best for business. And then he says, I'm going off to wherever the fuck, Prague or wherever the hell he's filming this TV show at. And I'm
yeah,
going to be gone for the next month. And you guys can slander me, make fun of me, insult me, talk about me all you want to. And I'll come back and I'm going to win that chamber. So he's in, guaranteed shot. Men's one of them's filled, right?
yeah.
Um, we have two more qualifying matches on Raw that night. Liv Morgan, Io Sky. Liv Morgan, um, gave Io Sky a chop block before the match began at backstage, and then she ran roughshod of Io Sky in the match. Liv Morgan's clinched her spot. Oh, well, there was some interference. I don't really want to get into that. Rhea got in the ring and put her hands on Liv, so the match ended the disqualification. I don't really want to get
Yeah,
into that. Liv Morgan's in, Io Sky's out, right?
yeah,
And then the main event, Sami Zayn, CM Punk for an Elimination Chamber qualifying match. And what do you know? CM Punk wins.
yeah.
Now, for me, this was kind of up in the air because on one hand, you think, yeah, obviously CM Punk should win this, but he could also lose it and then, you know, conjure his favor from Paul Heyman and get in anyways, right?
Yeah.
That's not what's going to happen, which makes sense because if Roman's not involved in the build towards Elimination Chamber, why exercise that favor from Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns? But CM Punk won. It was a good, it was a good, I mean, for a Raw match, listen, matches on Raw are usually not the best. It was a great match, great television match. And then after the match, Kevin Owens, who just got completely Cody Rhodes ran roughshod of Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble in that ladder match, beat the hell out of him.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens limps out there, gets in the ring, and delivers a package pile driver to Sami Zayn to end the show. Um, Elimination Chamber in Toronto once again. So this match easily could be at the Elimination Chamber. Um, but all signs point to another Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens match at WrestleMania. These guys wrestled at WrestleMania, I believe, 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago now. But they've wrestled at WrestleMania before. I did my homework before we started recording. They've wrestled on TV or at a premium live event 18 times in WWE alone. And a dozen or more times before that in either PWG or Ring of Honor. These guys have a long history of being friends, being tag teams, being enemies. Are you excited to see this again?
No, no, I'm not. I don't, I don't know how many times you could recycle the same story between these two. Like, Sammy's a good guy. Kevin is an asshole, turns on him, beats him up. They wrestle a match, and then later down the line, they become friends again, rinse and repeat. It's not interesting to me anymore.
Do you hope that this ends at Elimination Chamber, or, do you think this is going to go to WrestleMania?
Uh, I mean, for it being in Canada, you would assume it'd be in Elimination Chamber. Um, I mean, they're obviously most of the top guys in the company are going to be involved in the Elimination Chamber match.
Yeah.
So to have other matches on the show, that you would assume that'd be one of them. Um, but all signs kind of seem like it's going to be a WrestleMania match, especially with how involved Kevin Owens has been in the main event picture, and Sammy too, to a certain extent. Um, you would think that that would be a WrestleMania match, particularly because it's two nights, and you have to obviously fill two nights. So that would lead me to believe that this will be a Mania match.
Um, Going back to the beginning, I want to end our conversation on Raw, and then I have one more question before we end the show I want to ask you. But about Raw, Gunther comes out during Jey Uso's promo. Jey Uso, to say choked up is an understatement. He was tearing up. It seemed like he could barely speak, overcome with emotion. And I don't blame him. It was, that ovation he received was incredible. Cleveland, the Rumble wasn't in Cleveland. It's not like, to my knowledge, he doesn't have any special history with the city of Cleveland, and they just embraced him wholeheartedly, speaking to that connection he has with the crowd. And Gunter comes out and says, quite frankly, he's not interested in a match with Jey Uso because he's beaten Jey Uso before. Jey Uso's challenged him for the Intercontinental Championship and lost. He challenged him at Saturday night's main event at that point, it had been 7 or 9 days ago, and he beat him for the World Heavyweight Championship. And now, all of a sudden, because Jey Uso won the Rumble, he's going to be able to beat Gunther in a main event match at WrestleMania. That's Gunter's opinion, right? That's what he posited on the show. Jey Uso said it's going to be different this time. Things are different. He has more momentum than ever. He has more energy. He has a renewed focus. He's going to beat Gunther at WrestleMania. Almost sort of like Charlotte's kind of playing the field. Oh, I'll go to NXT, I'll go to SmackDown, and I'll pick my opponent. Jey Uso's, I want you. Gunther, I want you because I want that title. I'm tired of losing to you. You know, does it almost to you, does it seem like Jey Uso has to win this?
Yeah, yeah. I would be shocked if he didn't win at WrestleMania against Gunther.
Mhm.
Um, I I don't like it. Not that I would. Obviously, I would love to see Jey Uso win a world title. Um, but I think that uh, Gunther losing the title would really hurt him because his reign hasn't been particularly good to begin with, and even having Jay win or having him not win would, I think, just kind of crush all the momentum that he has up to this point, and as much faith that they've put into him by having him win the Rumble, I don't see how you can have him lose again for the third time to Gunther in a title match.
We've talked about this in the past, both on the show and just shooting the shit. I feel like one of the titles has to change hands at WrestleMania. Last year, both of them did. Um, but I feel like you can't. It's hard to leave WrestleMania without either titles holding changing hands. To a degree, in that way, there seems like it was sort of wasted, right? Um, I don't. To me, the WWE thrives when they have a heel like a Roman Reigns, a guy that you can throw baby faces at, right? At least on one of the brands. I mean, I know Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon have always said it's a babyface territory. Like that's been the mentality there for decades. But I think when you look at what Roman Reigns did as a heel for so long, um, you understand the allure of having a guy like that. And if Gunter beat him at WrestleMania and retain that title and kills all of that momentum, just as the stone wall that cannot be moved, that there's so much power in that, right? That Jey Uso has all this momentum and he won the Royal Rumble and he has this special, unique connection with the crowd and it seems inevitable and Gunter wins. I'm not saying he kills him. I'm not saying he squashes him, but it's a great
Yeah,
match and Gunter comes out victorious. You know how much power that would make him have as a heel? Because Gunter said, I've made you all believe that I'm having a difficulty maintaining this title, but I have not been challenged yet.
yeah,
And he's saying, and Jey Uso's not going to be the guy to challenge me.
yeah,
He's not on my level. And if he were to come out of WrestleMania proving that,
yeah,
I mean, how great would that make him look? I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a WrestleMania moment of the decade. Jey Uso wins the title, and I think it's going to be special. But I don't know, man. I mean, I'd almost be more inclined to say let Cody Rhodes lose his title. I don't know to who, but I would almost be more inclined to say let Cody lose it.
yeah. I mean, if you if you're Triple H and you're thinking, man, what if we pull a WrestleMania 39 on everybody? And because everybody in the world was expecting Cody to win that title.
Mhm.
He won the Rumble. The first time he won the Rumble, he came back from injury. It's they have the promo battles. It's like it's destined. It's ordained. It's going to happen. And we go in and Roman Reigns leaves WrestleMania as the champion, shocking everybody. I mean, it was one of the most divisive wins I've ever seen. Besides probably Jey Uso's Royal Rumble win, was probably one of the most divisive match results I've ever seen. And look what it built to. Built up to it only increased Roman Reigns' lore. It gave Cody a chance to, earn that title. And if you're, with Gunther, I think it would obviously it would only help him if he retained it. And he could be like, look, you had this guy with all the momentum in the world at his back, everybody expecting him to win, and he still couldn't beat me. For a third time, he couldn't beat me, and I think that would be a great story going forward for Gunther, as opposed to having him lose at back-to-back WrestleManias, losing a title. Uh, I think that would I think that would hurt him a lot if he were to have that happen. But unfortunately, it kind of seems like that's kind of where they're building to. But there is precedent that they have had the Rumble winner lose at WrestleMania, and a Rumble winner who had all the momentum in the world behind him. So it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you'd imagine that Triple H is inclined to his strength would be building heels because he's one of the greatest heels of all time and one of the most dominant champions of all time. My last question, I guess I mean it's hard to say this with but we're a month into WrestleMania season, right? And WrestleMania season ends in the first week of April, so that's 3 odd months. We're a third of the way through this build to WrestleMania. We have Jey Uso's won the Royal Rumble. And I think both of us agree that that does not seem like it's going to be the main event of WrestleMania on Sunday night. It does not. In fact, I question if it will be a main event of either night because
No.
Gunter's not one of the five biggest stars in the company. And while Jey Uso has that connection right now, he's not one of the five biggest names. Um, Charlotte Flair won the Women's Rumble. I don't expect a women's match to main event WrestleMania. So in my mind, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but until we know the Elimination Chamber winner who will face Cody Rhodes, which will probably be the main event of WrestleMania Sunday night, if I mean I think we won't really have an idea of the WrestleMania main event picture yet. And I feel like in at least in the past few years, when the guy that won the Rumble, we knew that was going to be the main event of WrestleMania night two, the most important night. Sunday night is the most important featured spot you can be in. And for the last at least three Royal Rumbles now, we've known that the guy that wins is going to be in that match against Roman Reigns. Do you feel like we're this deep in a WrestleMania season, we don't have enough anticipation for WrestleMania, and we don't have an idea of what the show's going to look like yet? Because I'm starting to feel like this is an issue.
Um, well, I'll say this. I could see them having Jey Uso and Gunther be the main event if they plan on having Jey win. Because then, like, have him be on there for Saturday. You have the show go off the air with Jey Uso holding the world title above his head, the crowd going crazy, the whole 9 yards. I could see them doing that. Um, as far as is it an issue that the WrestleMania match card is kind of still really, really fluid? Um, no, I don't think it's an issue because it's WrestleMania and the name WrestleMania sells itself. The matches are just kind of, most of the time they're just there. I mean, we've seen with how WWE has been recently, how they're so hot that anywhere they go, they sell out. It doesn't matter who's on the show. It doesn't matter if the card is good or bad. They're going to sell out. And WrestleMania is their Super Bowl, and it's the spectacle. It's where the lights are brightest, and it's a show that everybody goes to. That they always sell it out. It's always a big deal, no matter what it is. So, and I think the uh, the matches are going to be big because they have so many big names involved this year that I don't think people are that worried about it. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue.
If I may interject, I'm not talking about commercially. Obviously, WrestleMania is going to sell itself.
Yeah.
It is the Super Bowl, a perfect analogy. Super Bowl weekend coming up. It is the Super Bowl of wrestling.
Yeah.
Critically, I mean, in terms of the quality of the show, because last year WrestleManias have been, especially 39, was really great. WrestleMania 40 had a lot of high spots. It wasn't the best WrestleMania, but it had a lot of highs. Do you think this WrestleMania can live up to those just in the fact that like it almost seems like WWE doesn't have an idea of what that Sunday main event's going to look like yet. Like we've been throwing around, maybe it's Rollins, Punk, and Reigns. I don't know if I'm sold on that yet as that being the match.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't I can believe that they don't have everything finalized yet. Um, I know they've said before when guys have talked about matches in the past that matches themselves or results, they sometimes they come together last minute. Um, Now maybe not as far as like a high profile match like the WWE Championship. But again, Cody's reign isn't the same as Roman Reigns' reign. So it's not as big time. There's not as much anticipation to it because obviously it wasn't 3 years in the making. So I think that had its own unique build to it. Um, but you would like to see a few more things finalized. But maybe it's just the thought process they have of, well, we'll just keep everybody guessing. We'll keep that anticipation, and it will have people watch the shows to see what happens, who interacts with who, and how things end up being finalized. Maybe that's kind of what their thought process is with that.
I mean, in my mind, things were successful last year when we had an idea after I mean, obviously The Rock threw a wrench in things, but I think when Cody won, we pretty much had an idea of where this was going, and then by the time they did that press conference, we had an idea of what was going on. I just think back, when Brock won, and obviously the two Cody wins. We had not, and even when Edge won, I mean, we knew Edge was going to challenge Roman Reigns. I just feel like we had an idea of what that Sunday night main event was going to look like, and I mean, I still think CM Punk's going to be in the main event. I don't know against who, I don't know in what terms, but he's going to be in the main event of one of those nights. I might be wrong, but I just don't feel like Jey Uso and Gunther is a Sunday night main event. I don't. I mean, I
Yeah,
maybe a Saturday night, but I don't feel like it's a Sunday night main event.
yeah. No, I don't think it will be either. I think if it's going to main event, it'll be Saturday night,
Hmm.
and then Sunday night will either be whoever Cody ends up facing, or the Roman Seth Punk if that's what they decide to do. I think that's what Sunday night will be. Saturday night will be Jey Uso's night if he wins the title, or if Gunther retains it, whatever. But I think that will be when that happens. And then Sunday night, yeah, I think it'll be like, listen, I mean, Cody really hasn't main evented that many pay-per-views since he's been champion. So him not main eventing this WrestleMania, I don't think it wouldn't be that big of a deal, for lack of a better word, just because like again, his and Roman's title reigns are not the same. Like, and it's been clear since he won it, it hasn't been the same. So I don't think it would be that big of an issue because the WWE champion hasn't always main evented the WrestleManias in the past. So it's not like this would be a first time thing if it were to happen. So you know, I think Sunday night will be it'll be a big night anyway. I don't think it's gonna matter. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna matter whether even if it's talking about commercially, but as far as the fans, it gives them something to talk about, gives them something to speculate about, something to argue about on shows like this
Yeah.
about what match should be on, what shouldn't be on. And I think I think it's kind of a cool thing to let people keep guessing.
Um, well, I think that about covers it this week. Thank you guys for watching. Please follow us on Blue Sky, and Twitter. Like the video, leave a comment, let us know what you think about Grand Slam Australia, the wrestling shows this week. What do you think the WrestleMania main events are going to look like? And if you have any questions you'd like us to answer next week on the show, we'd be happy to. Please leave them in the comment section, and we will respond with a timestamp to the answer to your question. Straight to the point. You don't have to watch through the fat if you don't want to. But my name's Ray. Talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.